And it's a good morning to the Gelding on a very sunny Derby day, Gelding, and group racing returns to Flemington on arguably one of the bigger Victorian racing dates in the calendar.
Yes, good morning, Professor. Good morning, listeners. Well, Derby Day used to be regarded as one of the main racing day in Victoria, Professor, with something like 4 Group 1 races. But as you well know, racing committees, let's forget about it being the day of the Spring Carnival. We'll change them. We'll change races around. Like I'm looking here at the form guide, Professor. Wasn't there a big hoofah about being 10 races on a program?
Well, I see there's only 9 races today at Gelding. I was going to ask you about that. What happened to the 10th race?
Oh, don't know, Professor. Committees, they can do anything, can't they? So, okay, we obviously don't want the turnover from that today. I'm looking for the LKS McKinnon Stakes.
Oh, that's a featured race, Gelding, the LKS McKinnon.
Well, it was a Group 1 run on Derby Day as a lead-up, one of the lead-ups to the Melbourne Cup, commonly referred to as the practice stakes for Bart Cummings. We just give him a little run around. All of a sudden, it's missing, Professor. There is a fantastic sprint race on, of course, being the Coolmore Stakes, which was there for 3-year-olds. That used to be on the Thursday. And there used to be a Group 1 sprint for all ages on this day, which was a Group 1. It's now moved to the last day. So here we are, Professor, the main day at Flemington. And we've got 2 Group 1s. No wonder Mr. Volandi's up in Sydney's probably licking his lips with a $10 million Golden Eagle, which may triumph both the Coolmore Stud Stakes and the Derby. Sorry, Professor, we've got, of course, 3 Group 1 races with the Empire Rose, but obviously, yeah. Anyway, Professor, that's enough of me.
Well, Gelding, it's just as well there's only 9 races on the card because the first's at 12:20, the last's at 5:40. If they had a 10th race, they'd be finishing after 6 o'clock.
Well, and again, another thing, Professor. Normally race days, there's 35 minutes between races.
40 minutes today, Gelding.
Yeah, I noticed 40-minute break, Professor. Obviously, the committee got to get up on stage and do all the presentations and things like that. There's allow Eddie to talk for Channel 10, Professor.
Exactly. Anyway, Gelding, so group racing certainly returns. There's 4 Group 3s, 2 Group 2s and 3 Group 1s. And the feature races, I would suggest, are the race 6 Coolmore and the race 7 Victoria Derby, both for $2 million. So there's a little bit of prize money going around at Flemington today.
Oh, Professor, and of course the $1 million Empire Rose, and I think a couple of $500,000 races, and I think the lesser race on the day is 200,000, Professor. But adding up all the prize money doesn't even reach the $10 million for the Golden Eagle up in Sydney.
Well, and as you say, Gelding, once again, Mr. Volandis gets a bit of a tick in the win column.
I would say so. We're talking about prize money probably of $7 million today. But Racing New South Wales have opened up their shoulders. And this is a race for 4-year-olds, Professor, so which we'll talk about a little bit later on.
All right, Gelding, before I ask you for your tips, the track's a good 4. Given the wind and the sun that we can expect today, and it's going to be a fine day, the track could dry out, so that track could be upgraded. The rail's in the true position.
Yes, Professor. As I've said many times on this show, I regard Flemington as the best track in the Southern Hemisphere The racing surface will be fantastic. Look, they'll make sure it's not too firm, especially with the Melbourne Cup in mind and the weather that's coming later in the week. So I'm sure it's been given a good water. And this is a track that takes plenty of water and dries out. So hopefully we get a very, very good track. My tips, Professor, are in the Group 1s, the Coolmore Stakes and the Derby.
Now, before you give your tips, Gelding, we've got a new segment. They've got a new segment. Schooner's tip Gelding's tips.
Yes.
How's
his wallpaper going, Professor? Did you ask him?
No, I haven't asked him how the wallpaper's going, Gelding, but I can say
I thought we'd get it of the backdrop. Schooner tips at odds.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he got 1 out of 2, Gelding. He did get one of your selections correct, because he gives me 2 tips now every Saturday morning. He tries to guess what you'll tip for the day. So he got 1 out of 2, which is not bad.
Well, all right, Professor. Do you want to tell us which ones?
No. I'll tell you after you give, because I don't want to preempt what you're going to tip.
All right, Professor. My first tips in the Coolmore Stud Stakes. Look, I think Chris Waller, James McDonald, grand final days for these horses. Leading trainer in Australia, leading jockey in Australia. Something always good to have going with you, Professor. Chris Waller gets them right for their grand finals. He's just on fire at the moment. McDonald last week did very well for us with Romantic Warrior at the $3.50, Professor. So, no problems playing with their money this week, Professor. I like race 6, number 1, Jinso. Again, trained by Waller, ridden by McDonald. This is the Golden Slipper winner of this year. It's owned by Coolmore. This is a horse that was probably worth $40 or $50 million after it won the Golden Slipper, Professor. Chris Waller said this horse can train on as a 3-year-old. Look, it's had 2 starts for 9th, both times, but those 9th, Professor, was in the last 9th was in the Everest, and before that it had a start over 1400 at Rose Hill, and got beaten. I can't see Waller or Coolmore continuing to race this horse unless they've got a certain aim to make it more of a stallion. So they're probably looking for a Group 1 as a 3-year-old. The Coolmore Stud Stakes, renowned as being a maker of stallions. So, look, I'm happy to go on that, Professor. I backed it the other day at 7-1. I noticed it's into $4.50 now, Professor, in the market. So there's obviously a lot of confidence around the camp. Very hard race, some very, very good horses in this, Professor. And probably one of the main dangers is the Blue Army's Cylinder, which ran 5th in the Everest. So probably beaten 2 lengths by some of the best sprinters in the world, Professor. So this will be a very, very, very good race. Very happy to be on Jinzo at 7-1, Professor. So that's the first tip of the day.
Just before you go on there, Gelding, I just checked the prices. It's currently showing $3.60, so it's come in even further.
Oh, well, look, glad to be on it. The each way odds are $7, Professor.
Yeah, so I'd suggest if people are following your tips, Gelding, they probably should take it fixed now, because you can get $4.60 fixed at the moment, but $3.60 starting price.
Yeah, on the tote. So, good. That's a good piece of information there, Professor. We go then on to the Derby. And again, we like Waller and McDonald. In number 4, Reef Rocket. This horse is last 4 starts since the spell. There's 2 wins and 2 seconds, Professor. So this is a horse that's up there. Was beaten by a short half head at Caulfield last start by Sunsets, which is also in the race. But the start before that was at Flemington, Professor, and we saw this horse win by 6 lengths. So, look, question on all these horses. Will they get the distance of 2,500? It's an early... These horses have run over 2,000 metres. Who knows with the extra 500? But I think with the rider McDonald, who's absolutely in sensational form at the moment, Professor, hopefully we get a good ride from barrier 5 with the short run to the first corner. We should be in a lovely position, and hopefully Reef Rocket can be pulled out at the 300-metre mark and get us home. Professor, we're on at $2.40. Again, the question mark is that, but maybe closer to the race, you might get $3. So hopefully, again, this is something that you can back on an each-way basis.
Well, you can only get $2.20 fixed at the moment, Gelding. So your $2.40,
Right.
your $2.40 is looking very good.
Yep, and the place, Professor?
$1.30.
$1.30. Well, I reckon you might get a bit closer to $3 and $1.50 come race time, Professor. So let's hope that happens and we can greet them home. And Professor, you like?
Well, before I get that, Schooner's thoughts were you would pick race 4, horse 7, Spacewalk, probably because of Jamie Carr, and
Right.
race 7, horse 4, Riff Rocket. So, as I said, 50%.
50%, Professor. Yeah. Look, I like the triple missile in that race 4. So, well, yeah, Spacewalk's been very good, Professor. Again, the Blue Army. Is he following it because of the Blue Army?
Well, he probably thought that's why you might tip it, Gelding.
Right. Okay. Yeah, Jamie Carr. Hopefully, she can get a few wins on the board. And things like that. As you know, she was one of our favourites, Professor. But just since she's come back from injury, she just not getting the winning strike rate that she had during the beforehand. And what we're all about, Professor, is not so much worried about odds, trying to tip our listeners into the winners.
That's right, Gelding. Definitely. All right.
And
Gelding.
you like Professor?
Well, I'm going early, Gelding, on Derby Day. I like race 1, the Carbine Club Stakes, a Group 3 race for 3-year-olds over 1,600 metres. This one, Gelding, I like horse number 1, Brave Mead, coming out of barrier 5. Had 9 starts for 3 wins and 3 placings, so a 43% win rate, 86% place rate. It won very impressively at Caulfield 2 weeks ago when we were actually on the horse that ran second, the Instructor.
Yes.
It beat the Instructor and KZAD over 1,400 metres and meets those horses again today. It would have won by more in that last start, Gelding, if Mark Zara had got it out a little bit earlier. But it did a very good job on that day. Mark Zara's hopped off that horse today and is riding horse number 2, He-Man.
Was he jumped off or was he taken off, Professor?
Well, that's a good question.
I say that because this horse, Brave Mead, is owned by Australian Bloodstock, which also owned Gold Trip in the Cup. Now, Mark Zara jumped off Gold Trip in the Melbourne Cup to ride without fire. So you wonder whether Australian Bloodstock said, well, if you're not riding that one, you're not riding this one.
Well, he's not riding this one, Gelding, and fly-in jockey from the UK, Jamie Spencer's coming in to ride this one.
Yes, so very good, very, very good jockey. Jamie Spencer out here for the Cup. So, yeah, good to see him on board. It has a few rides during the day. So, yeah, let's hope he can get us home in the first, Professor.
Well, it'd be a good way to start, Gelding. Currently, you can get $2.90 and $1.35 fixed, but I think closer to starting time, you might get probably about $3 or a little bit better.
Yes, bit of a tip around for He-Man, Professor, but I do like your tip of Brave Mead. Nothing better than backing last start winners.
Exactly, Gelding. And coming out of the Mar Eustace stable, they're flying at the moment. A career win rate of 17%, but over the last 50, during the Spring Carnival, Gelding, 26%.
Wow, 1 in 4, Professor. No, not bad.
No, so hopefully that'll be a good start to the day for punters. And then I'm turning to race 3, the Furphy Sprint over 1,100 metres, a Group 3 for 4-year-olds and better mares. And this one I like, Gelding, horse number 10, Dancing Alone. Coming out of barrier 9, had 7 starts for the very impressive 6 wins. So an 86% win rate, 86% place rate. Gelding, it's a $1.4 million filly. So that tends to get me thinking that it's been purchased to run in group races and also win group races. It's up in class. It won at Flemington over the same distance at the end of September. It's had a nice patch of form with 4 wins from the last 5 starts. And even though it's up in class, Gelding, I rate it today. Billy Egan's in the saddle. He's got a 12% win rate over the last 50. And a trainer we don't talk about all that often, Gelding, Warwick Farm trainer Bryce Hayes. And he's originally from Waikato, Gelding, and you and I have got a bit of a connection with Waikato.
Yes, very much. As we look over our left shoulder, Professor, very much with Del Rios coming out of Waikato and the contact we had there. As you said, this is an I'm Invincible horse, which is a bit unusual for Waikato stud to be breeding to an Australian sire, Professor, where they stand Savabeel, and they've had the Group 1. Bryce Hayes down from Warwick Farm, very, very good trainer. He brought this horse. He had a very, very good sprinter about probably a decade ago now, Professor, in Spieth, which he used to bring down. So this is his highlight horse now, Dancing Alone. They've done the right thing, given the horse plenty of time. She's a 4-year-old mare. As you said, got beautiful bloodlines. Would be worth a lot of money as a broodmare, Professor. And if she can win this race today, a Group 3, just adds more to her value as a possible broodmare further in the future. But I do like your tip, Professor. It was a very, very good win last start.
Yes, Gelding, it was. And so my 2 best bets for today at Flemington: race 1, horse 1, Brave Mead; race 3, horse 10, Dancing Alone. Now, before I go to the Professor's Parlay, Gelding.
Oh, there's one question I was going to ask you there, Professor, before we finish with your tips.
Yes, Gelding.
Did Schooner have a go at your tips?
No, he did not.
Oh, he didn't?
No.
Why?
I think, Gelding, I think he thinks that yours might be more predictable than mine.
Has he still got that pot of beer he has? It was a Richmond Sydney game, wasn't it?
What are you, a slab, doesn't he?
Oh, mate, forget about interest.
Oh,
he hasn't got the short pocket syndrome, has he?
Gelding, before I get on to the Professor's Parlay, it must be Spring Carnival, and it must be the Flemington part of the Spring Carnival, because I've already been approached by 2 people today. Jack from Richmond,
yes,
who's a recidivist, and Brett from Rowville, who are both going out to Flemington today, both wanting to know if there's any tips.
Oh, Professor, can they ring the tipping line that we've got open?
Well, I'm just wondering whether we produce the beat tips for the people who only contact us at this time, Gelding.
Yeah, they're Anyway, sometimes you don't say anything, Professor.
All right, better to say nothing. Yes, Gelding. All right.
Yes.
Well, as I said, last thing before I get on to the Professor's Parlay, there's 2 tips, place bets only, Gelding. for the day, which I'd recommend to punters.
Yes.
Race 8, horse 6, Foxy Frida.
I was going to mention that, Professor. And
I've stolen your thunder, Gelding.
And we'll be having 5 each way on it. She's a good horse.
Yeah, and race 9, horse 11, Savannah Cloud.
One of your favourites for your local trainer, Professor.
That's right. So Foxy Frida currently $2.65 the place. So very good for each way punters. And Savannah Cloud, you can get $6 at the moment, Gelding. So that's very good, especially for those two horses, which don't usually win races, but they have a very good track record of being in the first 3.
Spot on there, Professor. But I might have just a little bit of win on Foxy Frida, probably more the place. I think she's going out to stud this year, Professor, so maybe good. But
the giraffe would be happy about that, Gelding.
He might see another Foxy Frida, Professor.
Oh dear, Gelding. Yes, we'll have to ask him about that when we see him next.
No, well, that we'll put away 20 minutes for that. That'll be a story now. Yeah, Professor, Foxy Frida is certainly a horse you'd like to own, a 6-year-old mare with winnings over $1.1 million, Professor, and is a Group 1 winner, I think. If not Group 1 winner, Group 1 place. So she'd be worth a bit as a brood mare. And of course, race 9, Philip Stokes, Savannah Cloud, that's a horse you've been following for a long, long time. And also, apart from the local trainer, Phil Stokes, also the Wiley Dalziel connection there, Professor.
Exactly, Gelding, exactly.
So you've got connections with Waikato Stud, Wiley Dalziel. You've got some connections in the racing industry, Professor.
Peter Moody.
Oh, Catherine Coleman.
That's right.
Yes.
All right, Gelding, let's get on to the Professor's parlay. Last week, Imperatrice, very good result in the Manikato Stakes, Gelding.
Impressive, Professor. She's racing the last Saturday in the carnival, so we'll probably be on it again, so you can give Schooner the word up on that. But I'm in a bit of a dilemma in that race, Professor, because In Secret will probably be running in the same race.
Oh, well, better get the coin out and toss it, Gelding.
Oh, yes, Professor. Be interesting.
And the second leg, which we thought might be the one that would bring us undone, Arsenal 5, Sheffield United 0. So that was all over at halftime.
What can I say, Professor? This week I'll say nothing about the EPL.
And as for the NFL, Gelding, the upset of the season, Denver Broncos 24, Kansas City Chiefs 9. Kansas City Chiefs only able to score 3 field goals. Patrick Mahomes having one of his worst outings in 4 or 5 years.
Professor, we're on you're back the best quarterback in the NFL, who we regard, I regard as the best quarterback in the NFL, and he doesn't get a touchdown. Is that the first time that's ever happened to him?
It'd be very close to the first time, Gelding.
A sensational thing, Professor, and I will, as I've said before, your tipping form in the NFL has been absolutely nothing short of sensational. So I'm quite happy you're continuing with it, despite the knock of Patrick Mahomes last week and the EPL. At this stage, I'll say nothing. But we'll save my ammunition for later in the week, Professor.
All right, Gelding. Well, this week's parlay, we're going to Rose Hill for the agreed bet of the day. Race 8, horse 16, Amelia's Jewel's been very kind to us when we've been on it in the past. Gelding, you might like to tell the viewers why we've selected that as our agreed bet of the day.
Professor, I think you just hit it on the head. Amelia's Jewel in the $10 million Golden Eagle race. Look, a very, very competitive race, Professor. Legato over from New Zealand, probably New Zealand's best middle distance horse. You have a horse down from Japan. I can't pronounce the name, Professor. Ombamari. it's got good form in good races in Japan, which, is world-class form. Chris Waller's Kovalik is a horse that I've been following, and it's just looming up to win a race. Golden Miles in the race, which we've been on before. Professor Pericles, the Blue Army, they've got him in, but Amelia's Jewel let us down last start in the Turak when ran 9, just ran a bit flat. Before then, had been running course record times in its wins. Damian Lane stuck with the horse. It has gone now to up there. The trainer, Simon Miller, over from WA, has said that the horse is back to normal. The form, the track work apparently reports have been very good. Damian Lane has forgiven all rides at Derby Day to go up and ride this horse. So he must think it's got a very, very winnable chance. Otherwise, why would give up rides at Derby Day? So look at round about the $4, Professor. I think you're backing a quality animal in a quality race with a quality jockey on board. So that'll do. Again, that we're looking at all these possibilities, Professor, and Amelia's Jewel is a horse that has been very kind to us.
All right, Gelding. Well, let's parlay that into the Cleveland Browns playing at home to beat the Arizona Cardinals. Cleveland Browns 7th in the AFC at the moment. They've won 4 out of 7. They've got a points differential of plus 15. Arizona Cardinals, Gelding, probably the season to forget. They traded their starting quarterback during the week, so that was a bit of a sit-up and take notice. They're stone motherless last in the NFC. They've won 1 from 8, minus 62 points differential, Gelding. They're only scoring 18 points per game. The bookies, Gelding, this is the biggest margin that the bookies are giving for this round of the NFL, plus 10.5. So that's more than a touchdown and a field goal of difference, they believe. And Cleveland Browns, very good on defence.
Should I get me Cardinals jumper out for the Melbourne Cup show, Professor?
Well, yeah, providing they
lose. If they win. If they lose.
I thought you'd be getting your Raiders jersey out, Gelding. They sacked their coach during the week.
Yes, look, my Raiders, a bit disappointing, Professor. I'm watching that game. Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about that off air. Why would you pay $60 million for a quarterback that can't win you a game?
Exactly, Gelding. All right, and we'll parlay that into Manchester City at home, the Premier League, to beat Bournemouth. Manchester City 3rd. They've won 8 from 10, goal differential of plus 15. Bournemouth 17th. They've only won 1 game out of 10, Gelding. They've got a minus 13 goal difference. Gelding, this would be a bigger boil over than Arsenal losing to Sheffield United last week. The bookies have Bournemouth at $26 to win the game. They're offering $12 the draw.
Oh, Professor. Okay. When's this game on, Professor?
This game's on tonight, Gelding.
Oh, okay. I look forward to your text, Professor.
Yeah, good. So the Professor's parlay, Gelding, showing 5-1 for the win.
Oh, nice.
Well, the value being given by Amelia's Jewel. So 5-1 to win, 7-2 the place.
Will that tempt Schooner?
5-1, Gelding, on a 3-leg parlay. That's pretty good odds.
Oh, Professor, look, we like it. As we said, the horse league's normally the hardest to get. Your sports tipping has been fantastic, but of course, the typical logic, there's more horses in a race field than the 2 in the sporting events, but has been spot on. So let's hope we're up and about this week with the Professor's parlay.
Well, we hope so, Gelding, and there's plenty to like about those tips today. We've given something for everybody there. There's for the win, the place, the parlay. So we hope everybody enjoys today's great day of racing at Flemington. And the benefit for punters, Gelding, there are 2 more editions in the coming week.
Oh,
the Cup Day edition of That's Racing and the Oaks Day edition of That's Racing on Thursday. So Tuesday and Thursday for That's Racing is in a packed week, Gelding.
Very packed week, Professor.
So you and I will be doing more homework and study than normal on the form guides. There's plenty to go through in the next few days.
And I look forward to Scooter's tips, Professor.
We'll see how many you can get right on Cup Day, Gelding.
All right, Professor. And can you ask him a favour?
Yeah, go on.
Can he send us in a photo of the wallpaper?
Okay, I'll ask him to do that.
All
All right, Gelding. Well, until Tuesday's edition of That's Racing, it's good luck.